Is this one on? All right. All right, so my name is Mitch Coop, and I actually want to pile on. I used to work for Scott, and so I think a lot of people don't recognize how influential Scott and Dan Mallon are in this entire community. I started working with them way back in the late 90s, and a lot of the big startups that have come out of Minnesota had their roots at Scott's companies. So I think he deserves another round of applause. So who here is a salesperson? So notice I kept my hand down. So I actually don't think of myself as a salesperson. I'm a technologist. I started programming at the age of 9. My whole mission in life was to build things that my friends said didn't suck. So I started programming, started making video games, and that led me to a path to computer science. I met some great, brilliant technologists along the way. We started a company in 2001 called Code 42. We launched a product in 2007 called Crash Plan, which went on to be the #1 backup software for consumers on Macs. And we were able to leverage that into becoming the #1 data protection software for enterprise. By 2015, we'd already raised our Series A, which was a $52.5 million round. We were well over 400 some folks. We were on our way to 100 million in revenue. I left in 2016, having done my share of, I think, contribution to get the company where it needed to be. We got a great growth CEO in place to take to the next level. Code 42 is still around, kicking and thriving, so that's fantastic because I'm still a shareholder. And during that, after I left, I immediately went into the next thing, which was a childhood dream of mine, which was to pursue something in artificial intelligence. Growing up, I read so many science fiction books, and I was like, it's finally here. I could be a part of this and realize those dreams and fantasies of what I was as a kid. It took about a year to figure out fact from fiction and realize that my dreams as a kid weren't going to come true in the next 2 years and required a lot of hard work. But there are things in AI that are really compelling, and we realized there was a big opportunity in capturing spoken customer conversations and tapping into the value of those conversations to help businesses learn and grow and accelerate their customer experiences. So much of what we do today is so transactional that sometimes it's easy to forget how important building a trusting relationship with your customers is for the long run. One of the most important metrics for SaaS companies is churn, and if you don't have a great relationship with your customers, you're going to lose them. And so we're really excited to tap into scope conversations to help people keep, maintain, and grow their customer bases.
My name is Scott Burns. I'm a longtime admirer of these two guys because building my last business brought me to DC all the time. I barely met them until we finally sold that last company, and I could enjoy the Twin Cities a little bit. And it's been a treat. So my background really in 2000, right about 2 minutes before the .com bust, I founded a company with a friend of mine called Gov Delivery. It was called Gov Docs at the time, and we had really an epic journey. So rather than starting and selling 5 times, we sold Gov Delivery twice during 16 years, and I ran it that whole time. We were the premier digital marketing, digital communications platform for government. So if you're familiar with ExactTarget, Marketo, those things, we did that for the public sector. Basically, marketing things like snow emergencies and flu shots and IRS information, and applying marketing principles to something that in the past had not been looked at that way. But if you think about it, we ought to be as good at marketing flu shots in this country as we are at marketing shoes. And so that was really the inspiration for me, and it was an opportunity to build a company from literally in the basement. It was worse than a basement. It was a basement apartment, so I also lived in it. And we built from there in St. Paul to 250 people, sold in 2016. The first sale was sort of to a growth equity firm in 2009. And I'll say that at that time, I thought I was going to be fired right away. My brother's an attorney in town. He's like, you got 6 months at the most, so keep your boxes packed. And I ended up lasting for 6 years, contrary to popular belief. Some of these PE firms are amazing to work with. They bring a lot to the table. And we were able to scale the company dramatically. So we provided a nice return to the first set of investors from 2000 to 2009, and then a really nice return to the PE firm. And in 2016, sold the company to a new PE firm. It's kind of how the world of software works these days. It's either a pyramid scheme or an amazing capital structure. We sold to a new PE firm who bought a competitor, well, somebody in the market, Granicus, that I really admired and had tried to merge with in the past, and we put the company together. I stayed for some of the integration and then was anxious to move on to something new. So what I'm doing now is a company called Structural, and sort of like being as good at marketing flu shots as we are at shoes, the sort of simple concept behind Structural is that you, in a large company especially, you ought to have as much data informing you about who to work with next at your company and how to support them as a manager as you have when you're selecting your next TV show on Netflix. And the fact is, we apply more data to selecting your next television show or your next restaurant than helping optimize the 40-hour work week. And so Structural organizes all the data that companies have around their people so that you can search and find the right people at the right time, make the right connections, and draw some pretty extraordinary insights like, what do our best salespeople have in common? Which training program or certifications are most correlated with success? So we're about a year and a half into it, and it's just incredibly exciting to be A, doing something I'm really passionate about and chose intentionally, and B, having the opportunity to sell around the Twin Cities. I had no idea how bad our traffic was. I had left kind of St. Paul or the airport for years. But now I'm really figuring out what a great connected community we have here, particularly working with big enterprises. And I'll add one more thing. I've been a champion of two things individually. Nothing like the Minnesota Cup. I've always been really inspired by what Scott and his partners have been able to do there. But I've been working on making sure that our view of tech and innovation in the Twin Cities expands also to the East Metro. And so some of you maybe, how many of you have heard of Osborne 370 over there? So we worked with Ecolab to repurpose that, their old headquarters, as an innovation space, and it is filling up with a TechStars program. APM has their incubator there. We have probably 10 software companies in there now. It's just an incredible space, and I encourage you, it's like 7 miles from here, so by any global definition, it's the same, literally the same neighborhood as where we are right now. So come over and check it out. There's events there this week, and it's just an awesome, vibrant place. I was tired of being in a building with 90-year-old lawyers. And so, as an entrepreneur, when I didn't have a job, we decided to kind of make that space happen. I hope you can come check it out.
Thanks, you guys.
Let's put it together.
Is it just me, or is it impossible not to clap after everything these guys say? I'm just fanboying right now. So let's get into it, because you guys have obviously been successful. I mean, I don't think you did, but I want to hear about failures, because to me that's the measure of a business professional. Is how do you get back up after you try something and fail? And what do you learn about it? Specifically and selfishly, I want to ask, so you guys can take that question how you want, talk about failure or whatnot, but I want to add a bonus point here. Has anyone in sales ever heard no? Put your hand up. Since you want sales reach, you've never heard no. I want to hear what it's like, those first no's that you hear as a second-time founder. Meaning you built something, right? You probably got a little chip, I mean, let's be honest, and then you start something new, and you hear no. How do you handle that?
All right, so two things. One is just the whole dealing with failure to begin with. Every venture I've had has had some colossal, near fatal failure along the way. And it's those failures that you learn from. And you have to be a student. You have to look in the mirror and say, what did I do wrong? And rather than saying, oh, my client, my vendor, my whoever screwed me up, you have to say, what is it that's my part in this? Because that's the only thing that matters. And what are you going to learn from it? I have remade or pivoted businesses along the way. And they are rebuilt out of the ashes of that failure and making sure it never happens again and what you learn from it. So that's one thing. You are going to fail. It's okay to fail. Just make sure it's not a fail and learn from it and make sure that's a catalyst to drive success. As far as that answer to no, no is just on a continuum to yes. And so when you're selling, be persistent. Don't allow no to. Okay. But in sales, No is just on a path to yes, and you keep working it. How do I understand my customer motivation better? How do I figure out my product market fit better? How do I figure out what is it that we need to do to satisfy their needs so they can get to yes? And the base answer for everybody when you're trying to sell to them is simply no. Everybody says no. We're built for it. Yes takes money. Yes takes time. Yes takes resources. So you have to figure out how to push past that and not just say, well, we tried at 3M, they said no. 3M is hundreds of possible customers, all that have needs. So figure out how to get somebody to yes, and then figure out how to get more yeses out.
Yeah.
So I actually have a couple of stories. One is my first sales no. So I said before, I'm not a salesperson. My dad, though, was a prolific used car salesman. So I do want to share my first sales story. It's when I was 15 years old. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. My dad comes in, knocking on my door. I don't wake up. He comes in further, kicks my bed, and then I wake up and goes, "Hey, how'd you like to make $1,000 today?" And I'm like, "I'm up." So, doesn't say in other words, I get in the car, we go to the Denny Hecker's big tent sale, right? It's out in like Forest Lake. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, he goes, "All right, here's the deal. For every car you sell, you get $250. I was like, oh man, I can do math, that's like 4 cars, that'll be easy. So, I get out there, I see people walking on the lot, I have no idea what I'm doing, and my dad sees me just standing there kind of watching people, and he goes, "Get out there." I'm like, "What do I do?" Talk to him. And so I go out there, and I see this guy with his kid in a stroller. I go, "Hey, what's your kid's name?" And he's just like, "What are you doing? You're a 15-year-old kid." I'm like, "You want to buy a car?" He's like, I'm just looking. So I tried this technique about 20 more times that day. I get the same response. I'm just looking. By 2 p.m., I'm completely deflated. I'm eating a hot dog, drinking Coke, sitting under a tree, thinking, when is this day going to be over? My dad comes over and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I go, "I'm eating a hot dog and drinking a Coke." And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you what you're not doing." I go, "What's that?" "You're not selling." And he just leaves. And so so I get back out there, and 9 o'clock can't come soon enough. By the time the sale ends, my dad's still wrapping up deals. He killed it that day. I'm like, when's he going to get done with the paperwork? We finally get in the car, head home. I sold 0, right? He doesn't say a thing. About 20 minutes into the car ride, he looks over to me and says, "So what'd you learn today?" And I go, "Man, selling cars is hard." He goes, "Damn right it is." That was my first sales experience. I got a ton of no's that day. Fast forwarding, so second-time founder. I think if anybody here familiar with data science, stats, probability, play fantasy football, your crunch numbers. Doing this a second time, third time, it doesn't make sense. All right, the probability of failure is way higher than the probability of success. The probability of us even doing it once is really, really low. So for people to come back a second time, you're already kind of crazy, right? You don't make sense. The reasons that you're doing this aren't based on probabilities. They're based on passion, they're based on interest, they're based on something that you just truly believe in, you want to build something, you want to get back. And so I think that's at the core of my ability to get past no. There's no reason why I should be doing the things that I'm doing other than I just believe in them. And if someone tells me no, then that person either is reflecting an unreasonable part of my brain that what I'm doing is just kind of crazy, or they're just not a good fit. And that's a big part of it. Like, I might not get you today, but hey, let me come back in 6 weeks, let me come back in 6 months, and that no might be a yes. So I agree with Scott. It's no is a continuum to yes. A no today might be a yes tomorrow, and sometimes it's the best thing that can ever happen because you'll skip time with someone who is just telling you, "I'm not for you."
Well, I have, I think coming into it again, it's a little like, if anybody's ever seen, there's a great movie called